おふくかけんは
結界です。
G'day trendsetters, welcome to another episode of Everyday Tea and Rice. It's an ongoing column by the living legend of the mighty Ueda Sokoryu, Mr. Fukuma Soshin. And today we're talking about the work behind a bowl, so all the stuff that goes into the preparation of a chaji, notably up until you press go, as in watering the garden, the preparations in the tea room, all that sort of jazz. And to get into the article, he reflects on a few of the tea gatherings that he'd been attending at the start of the year. And he gives the example of 3 tea gatherings that he participated in as a guest, and also 3 that he participated in on the host side. I won't read all of them, but there's one that I'd like to read straight away, and I quote Fukuma Sensei. The third was a more contemporary affair, hosted by a young artist collaborating with a flower arrangement sensei, held in a gallery space. In true artistic spirit, the host conceived and designed the entire gathering himself, from the spatial layout of the garden and tea room to the utensils, sweets, and thematic flow. He held the gathering over several days, and I was invited as a guest on the final day. The theme was white, shiro, and the space was entirely unified in that hue. The tatami, even their rims, were white. The utensils and sweets were commissioned to match. A bamboo vase hung on the pristine white wall, holding a single red camellia and a branch. As I entered the tea space, the camellia flower dropped from its stem. The vivid red blossom on the white gravel floor was an unforgettable image of quiet power. So this tea gathering is brought up as an example here and there from time to time in different conversations that I have in meetings in the Ueda Sokoryu. The sensei who's behind this gathering is teaching now in New York, so you'll probably be able to put 2 and 2 together. And it's a bit of a legendary tea gathering. I know that our newly appointed Grand Master talks about this and holds it dear. And it makes me wonder, why do we not do more of these tea gatherings? And the tea gatherings I'm talking about is adding a new spin on the old tradition. There's a beautiful saying, a 4-character phrase, fueki ryuko, which is timeless tradition is forever in fashion, or forever relevant. So you just take some of the backbones of the old tradition that's timeless, give them a new spin, and you have something that keeps tradition propelling along and keeping it interesting, rather than trying to do like historical recreationism, which, you know, is interesting in and of itself. But I think the things that really gets the tradition rooted in the next generation of culture is to do a healthy balance of some of the old timeless themes that make it the time-honoured tradition that it is, while also starting to find its way and new footing within some of the more contemporary themes in the contemporary art world. And because the contemporary art world at the moment is basically spineless, adding some beautiful time-honoured traditions like this into it in a good way and an authentic way could be a good way to bring back some of the credibility into the contemporary art world. So that's a bit contentious. Anyway, that's not Fukuma Soshin's idea, that's my idea. One other thing I just want to talk about with this tea gathering too, which I think is a beautiful note to mention, he talks about the falling of the flower onto the gravel. Like, I think it's lovely how he's spun a potential moment of failure into a moment of beauty. And you think about that entire white surrounds and the risk of having that one red flower to punctuate the space, and then for the highlight to actually fall on the floor on that bed of gravel in front of the tatami space, and that to be an arrangement and an image of, what does he say, quiet power. I think that's a lovely way to couch that moment. The next thing is two tea gatherings. The first was at home. I'll edit out a bit, but basically what he says at the end is most of the guests' questions, they're guests from a different school of tea, not the Uwedasoko school, were about the particulars of my tea school's Temai procedures, which was a bit of a pity, as I had hoped for a broader discussion. And this immediately brings to mind, actually talk about New York. When I was in New York, I think 2015 or something or thereabouts, I did a tea gathering there, and some of my guests were from another tea school. And the significance of the event was kind of like, not sort of about tea schools. It was, it was an art fair. So it was about the art, the selection of the pieces that were there, how the tea ceremony became a vessel to weave all the objects together and create a story around the exhibition and all that. And basically all I wanted to talk about was the particulars of my tea school's temai. So it's kind of missing the point of why we're there. And so this immediately made me reflect on that, because at that time also I'd hoped for a broader discussion. So what are things that you can expect in a broader discussion? Well, for starters, there's tens of different tea schools, so you shouldn't get stuck on the idea that your tea school is the one measuring stick for all others. They're all great expressions and totally valid expressions of the one art form. There's not one best school of tea, as much as we probably like to think that our school of tea is the best school of tea. It's just affection for our own school and pride in what we do. But you can't get bogged down to this fixation that your school is the measuring stick for all others, and therefore you objectify another host that's doing tea in front of you, making them into a kind of like museum exhibit, rather than picking up the broader themes about the Toriawase and asking questions about that to hopefully push the discussion off into broader philosophical, reflective things, poetic themes about the artwork and the Toriawase that transcend the mediocrity of like the differences between how you fold a bloody chuck in. So as much as they're interesting and at times they could point to deeper issues like being a warrior class school of tea and the other school of tea being a merchant class school of tea. Like there's different values and philosophies that they're drawing from when they're composing the movements. So maybe there is an eloquent and delicate way to talk about these things, but you should be trying to suggest these deeper philosophical, broader themes rather than just trying to fixate on, we do this and you do that and why and all that sort of jazz. It kind of reduces the thing into, I don't know, like a documentary or something, and doesn't feel good when you're the host being bombarded or being treated like an object like that. Rightio, so that was another little bit of a contentious thing. God, I'm on a roll today. Another point that Fukumashi-han makes in one of the gatherings that he hosted at Wafudo, the head of my tea school, is very relevant for people practicing tea outside Japan. He notes here, beforehand, I spent much time considering how to assist my guests to enjoy the day. People were novices, they had pretty much no idea about what to do, and being invited into the home of a tea school must have been pretty daunting for these people. He said, fortunately, the atmosphere of the Wafudo setting and the beauty of the utensils that you can use at Wafudo and the appeal of the meal helped the gathering come together. And what this brought up for me is outside of Japan, we don't have all the trimmings and these traditional architectural buildings that we can rent or use and borrow the time-honoured beauty of these places to make our gatherings appealing to guests. We basically have to create things from scratch. And I just wanted to mention that how hard it is to do tea outside of Japan when you have these incredible aesthetics that you can have and rent quite cheaply nowadays to do tea in a tea house in Japan. But overseas we don't have that, and to create something is an incredible investment. And we don't really want to recreate the wheel anyway, like that historical recreationism again, which I was talking about before. Like I know that does the job for some people, and some people really like that. Me, I sort of want to take tea and make it like a world culture. So I don't want it to make like this stereotypical Japanese thing necessarily. I think there's room to have that underlying basis, which was perfected in Japan, the form, with all the philosophies and the idea and the art that was going on during the last few centuries. But now to take those jewels and then apply them more broadly to a more global tea culture is something that I'm deeply interested in. So this just brought up the idea that how hard it is to bloody create something outside of Japan where you don't have these drop-dead gorgeous tea houses to be able to perform tea in. So good on you if you're outside of Japan, making it happen. Keep going. The last half of this section basically talks about the finery binary of preparing like the garden and watering the garden for different seasons and the timing of doing such things, which is not going to be relevant for people that are not really hardcore into practicing tea. So I'll leave that to my patrons, can read all about that, and I'll just leave it here, I guess. So there you go, short but sweet this time, a little bit controversial, but that's what this is meant to be about. So thank you, Fukuma Soshin, for bringing those ideas up and sharing your great wisdom. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.